an amazing number of days and weeks coming into 2 weeks already. Well, this whole EndSARS thing doesn't seem like it's going away anytime soon. Well, quickly from the feedback, some feedback that we got yesterday, let me begin with this one. Just take a few of them before we look at the papers this morning. Hello, government's credibility is now on trial in Nigeria. This is from Patrick in Nobeme. It says, given the various promises, such as the restructuring of the federation made by the government, and which they have flagrantly failed to fulfill, the youths are finding it difficult to believe that the government is serious in its promise to reform the police. Perhaps, you know, they back up their belief. He backs up his belief with the fact that for 4 years, 4 times in about 4 years, this particular unit has been disbanded over and over again, with seems like nothing is changing. This one is from Nduka Ozuribo. Says the IGP can set up an intelligence team in every state made of the credible police officers, which I believe there would be, who would disguise on the roads, even in public transport, to fish out those bad officers collecting money and unleashing brutality on citizens. Then very decisive disciplinary measures applied. I bet you other officers would sit up. That's from Nduka. And this one from Emeka Namani says, the position of some northern governors suggests that the SARS team in the north is different from the SARS team in the south. They are also suggesting that the police is treating youth in the north differently from the way the youths in the south are being treated by the SARS team. It is very surprising to hear the suggestions from our northern elites. It is well with Nigeria. This is from Emeka Namani. An additional Adeyemi wrote in last week, good morning, gentlemen. Please note that the protest should be codenamed End Police Corruption and Brutality. We're in hell in this country. An average policeman sees a successful Nigerian as an enemy, then goes after him to extort and or hound him into prison. It's a sad development. Corruption in police starts at the so-called police training schools and colleges. Recruits buy all they see in the training schools. We need to wake up and correct the ills in our society. That is from Additional Adeyemi. So many of these messages, of course, you can also join us. Send an email to us, sunrisedaily@channelstv.com. Sunrisedaily@channelstv.com, that's the email address. Of course, you can always say that right now. Well, so many things happening over and over again. You can see that crisscrossing. No. It's a protest, and he's right here. What are you protesting about?
Who's that?
Yeah. Good morning, Chamberlain.
Yours or what? Yeah, well, yes, indeed. Good morning. Well, yeah, it is interesting the way things are panning out. But, well, we'll just go right ahead and take a look at all the dailies and how they are reflecting.
Did you have any experience of all of this last week?
Well, yeah, we'll talk about it. We will. There's plenty
So, yeah, a lot, really,
of experiences. Yeah. And, well, you don't know what happened over the weekend. Yes, it was indeed interesting. Now, you know, when you get in there, you get in their midst and you see what's happening.
Exactly.
You hear directly from them. So that we did a lot.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, and yeah.
It was actually quite interesting and very, very revealing. The fact that it was temperate at the venue that I visited was really awesome. You can't say, okay, this is the central point, this is the person to talk to and anything. It's really very, very wonderful. And the hopes are very high as to what this is going to produce.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had different people who thought, look, they said, look, this is what we call the locust movement. And they just thought, because of the way locusts congregate and then move in different bands, but most times they tend to ask almost similar, the same kind of demands, central focus and demands, maybe a little variation with one group or the other, but essentially that is the way they operate. And so if they're looking to see how do they rein that in, they just wonder if it's going to be a good idea to have this kind of things. But
well, I think look, there's so much, as you said, there's a lot of things to look out here today.
So much to unpack, really.
Yes, absolutely. But maybe we should go to the papers.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and, wow, quite a number of them actually today. So we'll start with Nigerian Tribune. And as EndSARS protests continue, no peace without justice, Catholic bishops tell government. So that is the big one they've got right on the front page of the Daily here today. And if you notice, the dailies have had series of writers associated with the lead stories over the last week or two, most part of last week actually. The same thing continues today. The first one here reads, Anglican Communion bemoans wave of insecurity, corruption. Exercise patience. Methodist prelate appeals to protesters. It's sacrilege to kill protesters. Oyedepo. Negotiate with protesting youths immediately. Affair advises FG. IGP lists qualifications of SWAT team as training begins today. Oyo sets up platforms to report police violations. And you know, part of what made the rounds over the week, you know, all of these headlines notwithstanding, several recommendations really in terms of the modalities. Yes, they came up with the SWAT team. Remember the gentleman who said, look, if we don't do something about the entry qualification of police officers, we just may keep having these kinds of problems.
You know, over the months, at least 6 months now, no, I think it was even before the election of last year, we kept talking about the leadership recruitment process. This is part of it, you know, and I think it's a lot bigger now than ever before.
Yeah, so that's the big one right there. That's Nigerian Tribune this morning.
Look at Daily Trust this morning. It's pretty much saying the same thing. EndSARS, too much hunger in the land. That's according to who? Governors. Now, they would know because, I mean, maybe they have some other information. But then that's what you have on the lead, as lead of the Daily Trust this morning. Protests can hurt economy, should stop now, says Lawan, as president of the Senate. Those in streets against government, not anti-SARS anymore. Find out who said that on the inside pages. Operation Crocodile Smile, ill-timed. 30 CSOs came together to say that, and the army responded by saying, we're not targeting EndSARS protesters. Find out the details on the inside pages. Pages 4 and 5 have those stories this morning, because that's images of protesters in front of the CBN's headquarters in Abuja yesterday. And right above the main story, IGP lists qualifications of SWAT personnel as training begins today. That story is on page 10. And then this one, no details of INEC plans to spend 40 billion naira in 2021. That story is on page 31. Find out the details, the rest of the story on the inside page, and so many other issues. Oh, by the way, there is this one that some would say is one of the consequences of this protest. NECO reschedules examination over EndSARS protest. So that has happened.
Yeah, I mean, they also have several schools who initially gave the instructions to their students rather, to come in over the period than this week. But it turns out that when the parents did intervene, sending them a message or two, they had to modify.
Absolutely.
Saying, look at what's going on. You can't be oblivious of all of these things. So they had to then modify, and then the online platform of learning still subsists. So we had to find a way to... They talk about the new normal, isn't it?
Well, this new normal is actually very, very revolutionary, if I can use the word.
Well, look at Vanguard here. EndSARS, stop Army's planned Operation Crocodile Smile. CSOs tell FG, say military should remain in barracks till protests end. Kill protesters, face international criminal courts. ASCAP cautions Burutai, says it's ill-timed, could exacerbate citizens' distrust, lack of confidence in state institutions. Crocodile Smile, not going after EndSARS protesters, says Army. Defense Minister warns protesters against undermining national security. thugs attacked us, not protesters. Oyetola, that's Osun State government.
Yes.
Okay, and then you see SARS disbandment won't stop police brutality. Catholic bishops, Buhari, NAS leadership brainstorm on quick implementation of protesters' demands. Yeah, and then you see the sea of heads here, which you get to see in some of the reports as we progress here today. So this is the big one. And then you got mixed performance trails national housing delivery as NHF grows 18%, non-compliance lingers, more retirees withdraw. Well, that's about, that one. Hey, look at this. Reps Gazette Water Resources Bill for reintroduction. So what part of that English didn't they understand? Because, I thought there was a lot of hue and cry about saying, look, they don't want this bill. Many of them, some of them in the assembly. And now if they're going to gazette it for reintroduction, what's going on here?
Maybe sometimes it seems like the people are not speaking loud enough, or maybe they don't sound okay. If I can go.
Well, the thing is, they can't force bills down.
That's the thing. Maybe the message just doesn't seem to be strong enough for the legislators to recognize, or maybe there are things that they know that the people do not know, and they are not willing to communicate, or they are not communicating well enough yet. That is the issue, and it goes to the whole, entire spectrum of everything that these, young people are talking about. If they pick on this one now, what's the hashtag going to be? You understand? So I think those are the things that people just need to understand. Leadership is a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a monarchy. And people should just understand that. Find out why these people are saying they don't want this thing, and then we move up from there.
Okay, so there you go. Don't forget to take a look at what is on the back page as well. Roles technically deficient, that says Owolabi.
Wow.
Well, they will even say this of club. After winning Champions League and Premier League, and you lose maybe certain matches in a row, they'll call for your head. So it's just the way the sport is. That's Vanguard today.
The Guardian newspaper is talking about the same thing as the Vanguard newspaper. No military force, Nigerians warn. National Assembly wants end to protests. FG to address demand in 14 days. Ethnic groups back agitations, and OPC ex-Senator Y want restructuring. That story is the lead and continues on page 2. Of course, those two images you see there are those of the legislature and the executive having a meeting over the protests and the unyielding EndSARS protesters around the CBN headquarters yesterday. Right under that one, alleged cyber attack on CBN causes stir in banks and others. Of course that would. Come on, it's the central bank we're talking about here. Executives hold emergency meetings. Economies may lose $6 trillion to attacks, expert warns, and experts call for proactive measures. Please check all of that. Story continues on page 2. And there is a call to the editorial page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. EndSARS protests before it is too late. You'll find it on page 12. Well, just in case you think COVID-19 is gone, COVID-19 cases may rise as more schools reopen. Experts warn. That's right under the nameplate. There was this report last week, over the weekend, I don't know if you saw it, of a private school that reported 181 students being positive with COVID-19 in Lagos. Mm-hmm. Now, naturally, one can imagine what all of that, has, what the implications of all of that is, and also leading to what the PTF COVID-19 has been saying about a second wave, which we are saying, God forbid. Well, that's right there on the front page of the Guardian newspaper this morning. The back page has opinions that you may want to check out.
Look at Daily Independent next. EndSARS protests hijacked to destabilize Buhari government. That's FG. They're speaking back now. Buhari meets National Assembly leadership as protesters remain adamant. Oyo creates platforms to report police brutality. Police SWAT operatives begin training today. Protesters, their military, commence camping in Abuja. Afenifere, Adams, Junaid, others warned against using army. Army denies planned deployment of troops on protesters. So, there you go. It's something that everybody will be looking to see. How is this eventually going to happen? And then you have Nigerian banks may suffer spike in bad loans in 2021, even though they consistently declare profits, year on year. COVID or no COVID, they equally had huge profits declared, the banks. Then a bit of politics. Ondo Deputy Governor Ajayi set to resign this week. Yeah, that's what you find there. How about this one? Over 50 illegal aids planted in Gbajabiamila's office. Well, the report is talking about, illegal appointees, to impact on the payroll. They said they were secretly included in the National Assembly's payroll as aides working in his office, and then they're eventually going to, well, it's just right there for a lot of people to go ahead and see what this one is about.
The leadership newspaper this morning is also talking about EndSARS protests hijacked to destabilize PMB's government. That's according to the federal government. I wonder how the protesters will react to that one. Protesters perfect plots to ground government activities, launch online radio Sorosoke. And NECO postpones exams. National Assembly leadership meets president, says protests will worsen economic situation. We're worried about discontent, anger in the land. That's according to governors. New tactical team, SWAT, begins training today. All of that you'll find the details on page 4 of the paper this morning. And 2.556 billion pound fraud attempt. Supreme Court to hear CBN's appeal against Petrol Union tomorrow. You find the details on the inside pages right there, and a number of other stories that you will find quite interesting this morning.
And then you've got Daily Times. Don't send armed forces against protesters. Nigerians warn FG. So this is, there's a lot of back and forth about this one ever since that statement from the army came through. Remember, there were 2 previous notices by the army before this one. And so initially, I think one of the last of that before this one did say, well, that the army was on standby in case they needed to be, in case they were going to be called upon by civil authorities. But I guess they just couldn't wait any longer. And then they had said, well, look, we're going to continue with this Operation Smile nationwide. I see why. So, that's what you tend to see now. So the way the country, or a lot of people have perceived this one, clearly you could see, as reflected in the daily, it's not just coming out very good on the part of the citizens, how they perceive this. So, again, the pressures they have against the security agencies, this us and them mindset seems to be grabbing a lot more headlines as opposed to what the army might have wanted that to be. So that's our daily time today.
The Nigerian News Direct also talks about the same EndSARS protests, but this angle. EndSARS protesters block CBN's head office as army says exercise crocodile smile 4 not to tackle protesters. Protesters launch online radio. Akeredolu calls for coordination of protests. And that story is on page 3 of the Nigerian News Direct this morning.
So SWAT. Communication again.
Again. Always the thing. I think, it's something that's been happening over the years. So it seems like, people who find themselves in these positions just have a default way of looking at issues, forgetting that there is a way we saw these things before we got into government. But that's what you have on the front page. Right above the nameplate, Nigerian protesters unite to distribute funds for EndSARS protesters. That story is also on page 3, and so you're wondering, where is that coming from? Right beside that story, you find this one. FG reiterates commitments to lift 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. That one is right there on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct. Among several others, you can choose and pick.
Well, there you go. That looks to be it today. With a look at some of the dailies, I mean, there was another interesting scenario. I missed it up in front page of Daily Times where the EndSARS protesters were raising money for physically challenged protester Jane Obiana to buy prosthetic leg in Abuja.
So many things.
On Sunday.
It's really amazing the way the interventions. Like, for instance, I came across another Twitter handle this morning of EndSARS response unit. I don't even know how that is really going on, and they have a list of things that they want you to respond to. It's a link to a website. These are the things that you can respond to. Just tap on this one if this is the issue, if it's funds you need, if it's medical intervention, if it's legal aid, and all those
so
things.
They got a plan to be there for the long haul. So, all right. And then they'll have a radio. An
online radio now. In fact,
facilitate movement?
Yeah, I hear that's the second online radio. There's another one that's come before, that one.
So,
well, government has its work cut out for it, clearly.
Yeah, clearly. So there you go. But then government is also speaking back. But we'll get to hear some of those impressions in just a moment. So there you go. That is it with the dailies here today. We will be back in a moment. Stay with us.
The protests have taken place and the issues have been accepted. The time has come for the protests to stop because government needs to have sufficient time, a clement environment to implement the demands of the protesters. We also need to have our economy to continue to go on. When you try to stop everybody from engaging in their lawful businesses, closing roads to markets and other economic places, we distract the economy of the country, and that is not the best way to go. If the issues had not been accepted, then there would have been genuine reasons to continue with demonstrations and protests. But since the issues have been accepted, we should give government time to implement the issues. And therefore, I'm taking this opportunity to appeal to our youth who are protesting that the protests have already yielded the desired results. First of all, they say end SARS. That was the beginning. SARS was ended not by the IGP. SARS was ended by the president himself. The president, President Muhammadu Buhari, made a statement, a presidential statement, and that would be the first time that any president will say end SARS. And SARS has ended. The other issues followed. The other issues are being addressed, and that's why we are here. So I believe that the time has come for this protest to come to an end, to allow government to address the issues in a very short time. I also believe that other Nigerians have legitimate rights to go on their lawful businesses without let or hindrance. And we cannot have that when the roads are blocked. So we don't want a situation where there will be a degeneration of law and order because somebody is blocked and he feels he must have his way. So we believe that withdrawing from this process at this moment is the right thing to do. Meanwhile, give us the opportunity to deal with matters that we have, as a government, agreed to handle.
I've heard the story that, we've had EndSARS, 4 times before in our past, and that's what people are saying. And like I say, this is the first time you haven't heard it from Mr. President. You've never heard it from Mr. President, but now he said so. So let us tarry a little while. Let us sit back. We've gotten what we want, what we started out with. So let us sit and see what happens. Now, if you like, you begin your protest again if nothing happens in 2 weeks. But let us not continue this thing and then lose the plot. That is what I don't want. I don't want our youth to lose the plot. They've done so well in terms of expressing their grievances, and it's important we don't get sidetracked. Of course, there are tangential issues that they've discussed after the EndSARS. Government, we spoke with Mr. President, is looking at every single thing. But some of these things are policy matters that will that are not going to happen overnight. You're not going to ask for electricity overnight, and it's going to happen tomorrow. You're not going to have free roads, and it's going to happen tomorrow. But it's a process, and the important thing is that government has heard you loud and clear. I have heard. Now, it's a continuous engagement. I'm more than happy as the Speaker of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to engage, and I'm sure the Senate President as well, to begin to engage our youth in matters of policy and communicate with Mr. President as well on what needs to be done.
Welcome back. We've got 2 gentlemen to kick off this morning. Aliyu Aldu is the leader, is the coordinator for APC Young Stakeholders. We also do have Honorable Dachum Bagos, who is the member, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. Gentlemen, good morning and thank you for joining us today. Well, Honorable Bagos, let me start with you. Having listened to the Speaker and the President on the Senate about their impressions, I mean, yes, clearly you heard their perspective and what they think of those protests. Well, does that then mean that the National Assembly would toe the same line?
Yeah, well, I stand with what the Speaker said because the National Assembly over the past 1 year, most of these issues that the protesters are agitating so far, over 70% of the issues have been moved in the House in a form of a motion. And you know that motions are like resolutions and advisory to government. So the Speaker's concern on what is happening is germane, and all of us as members of the National Assembly are so concerned with what is happening now. But then, 2 things. The Speaker quite mentioned about these policies. We need time to be able to see how it will be resolved. But then, and even us as members of the National Assembly, like I said earlier, most of these issues have been on the floor because in the past 1 year we have had over 800 motions, and most of these motions have to do with most of the issues that the protesters are agitating. And and that's where the problem is. Yes, the president have agreed that SARS will end and has adopted most of the demands of the protesters. But the problem now is how the implementation, how fast and when it will start. Because even us, we are so concerned as members of the National Assembly that we have had most of these issues as motion over the past 1 year, and virtually most of them have not yet been implemented. So that's where the protesters have concern. Our constituents have concern about.
Do you think that your constituency, for instance, who have been hard hit with this security challenge, families that are, of course, equally hit, do you think that they'll accept some of these perspectives that, well, you just have to hold on and wait for a while before some of these things happen? How do you think they'll receive it?
Yeah, it's very, I can assure you it's very difficult. Like my constituency, which is the city center, cosmopolitan, and most of the protests is carried out in my constituency, especially in my own state. Most of what they are now saying is that, look, yes, we have heard you. Even we have given you some of these issues and you have raised on the floor of the House, no solution up till now. So how can we even believe what government is saying now? So that's where most of us are having problem in trying to convince most of our constituents that, look, government wants to do this, but they've said that, look, you have put this on the floor of the House for over a year and nothing has happened. So how can we believe it? So this is where we are now. The issue is how ready the executive are really willing to execute some of these issues. And that is where our constituents, and that is where most of us, even most of us at the National Assembly, want to see the blueprint by the executive. This is how we want to address demand 1, 2, 3, 4 to 5. Yes, SARS has been ended, and which has even been one of the issues at the National Assembly, that service chiefs should resign or should be changed or whatsoever in terms of insecurity and so on and so forth.
And that hasn't happened.
The major problem now is how will this
that example you gave,
what is the solution and way out?
Is that a good example? Because if National Assembly have said that time and again, that hasn't happened. So wherein do you think they'll have confidence that, well, government will do what they say they will do concerning those items which you say give them time?
And that's where, because that's where we are now. The executive really needs to show that they are ready and willing. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, at times when he speaks on the floor of the House, as if he will cry because of most of these issues. And most of us members some members have even threatened to resign. So now our own problem is how sincerely the executive is ready and willing to execute and to implement some of these problems.
All right.
So we want to see that, okay, now part of the demands is that protesters should be released. We want to see that, look, okay, all these protesters, let it be viewed on TV that these protesters have been released. Demand 1 have been addressed. We want to see that the police, the SARS officers that were involved in most of this brutality, because most of the protesters have their names because they were victims. We want to see them in court in the next day, that they are being tried. At least demand 2 has been. So when people start seeing that most of these issues are being addressed, even while they're on the street, they will say, okay, government is ready and is hacking to, but it's the 9th and the 12th day now, apart from banning SARS, no any issue have been addressed yet, apart from promise that these issues will be so. So it's something that is a very big concern to us, that government really needs to show the political will. It's not just about the political statement.
So, Mr. Alju, having heard that, frustrations even in the National Assembly. So, in addition to the commendation that came a lot from those who are speaking up about what they feel is going on, do you think there's any reason for them to sheath their swords?
Thank you for having me. I'm a member of the APC Young Stakeholders. A few days ago, we released a press conference that was largely misrepresented on the internet for mischief. If my fellow young Nigerians will take time to go through the script, it's clear we were not speaking for government. As young stakeholders in this country, primarily because we are Nigerians first, before our partisan affiliation, we were speaking with our fellow young people, and we're speaking to our fellow young people. We declare total support for what they are doing. We appreciate the genuineness. As a matter of fact, they've made us so proud that what we've been able to do with this protest is to show the world that we're not only challenging a bad system, we are clearly saying that what young people of this country want is simple. We just want to be happy. We just want a system, a country that works for us. We're not greedy. We're not selfish. All of this, you've seen images of young people looking out for one another, looking out for policemen. You've seen images of young people cleaning up after themselves. We've seen, an organized protest. People pitching in, their beat one way or the other. We just see young people, being happy and being, merry. That's what we want. What we are saying as young people in party who understands some of the things we need our fellow young people to understand is this. We mean well. The protest means well. But we must be able to control what we currently hold, which is power. Power intoxicates, irrespective of who is holding it, whether the people or government. And absolute power, even absolutely. In this case, we have the power. The world is listening. Government is listening. And we can tell they are listening. Like the Honorable Member said, 2 of the 5 demands have been met. 3 are being met. And one thing we don't want to be seen is wanting to have power for the sake of it. The protest itself is not the end. It's a means to an end. We want to use this. The idea was to use the protest to get government to listen. Government is listening. We equally must demonstrate that we are listening to government. And this is where we came in. What we said was in no way and order. It was advisory at best. We were pleading with our fellow young people, saying, let's not lose the goodwill, the support we are getting from everywhere. In the last few days, there have been reports of phone snatching, members preventing other members from lynching some of the suspects. There have been issues of shop looting. There have been issues of, cyber threats. These are things we can do as young people, yes, but these are not the things we are proud of.
Yeah, very, very quickly, let me ask you
These
this.
are not the things
Just
we
one
want to
moment,
remember
just
for.
one moment, Mr. Audu. You said that we need to demonstrate, the young people who are protesting need to demonstrate that they are listening to government because government has listened by addressing a couple of issues that have been raised. Now, from your experience as a Nigerian, given the greatly depleted trust quotient in government, do you still fault the fact that the protesters are insisting on remaining on the streets until they see action, until they see that things are actually done? Not just promises, what they call audio promises, but actual action to demonstrate that government is really serious about this and taking them serious too.
There is no way anyone in my generation, whether you are in government or in party in government, can fault the protesters still remaining on the street despite the promises. At about 40, we've had promises all our life, but we haven't seen matching actions. So even in our press statement, we stated clearly that we understand that the long decades of mistrust between the people and the government are the reason why our fellow young people are still on the street despite the promises. So we on the inside are telling our government, our officials, our people we are the party in power. We are telling our people in government, you need to do more. You need to be more patient with our guys because this is the reason why they are not listening because they've heard this all over. We've heard this for decades. So we understand why people are not listening. So we are telling our guys on the inside, we need to do more. We need to move this needle faster than we are currently doing so that people understand that there's clear determination. We are truly committed to, fulfilling some of these promises. But in order to do this, in order to show that even we, the young people, know how to control power, we must be able to pause at our peak so that the last thing the government remembers us for is an organized, civil, well-coordinated, and listening group of young people who are resilient. So that even if we, like the speaker said, if we decide to back down for 2 weeks, let's give timelines.
Okay.
Let's go to table. Let's reorganize ourselves. It's pretty cute now saying we have no leaders. We have no leaders. It sounds good, but it won't sound good forever. No society, no community. This is already a community. No society, no community works well without leadership. So these are some of the things. These are some of the things we want our young protesters to do. Let's give a small time, pause.
Okay.
And give timelines with acceptable.
That's noted. Let me ask Honorable Bagos this one.
Come back to the street if those deliverables are not met.
Thank you, Mr. Audi. Just one moment. Let me ask Honorable Bagos. Well, it's been said over and over again that this is not the first time we're banning or calling for the ban of SARS over time, which has become more like a symbol now. But SARS, you know, this whole idea of police brutality started way back in time. You'll remember a musician, you know, sang that song about police brutality. You also know that Fela Anikulapo sang songs along that line over the years. Just about 3 years ago, in 2017, you are aware that this EndSARS campaign started about that time, and a number of people actually signed a petition calling for the ban of SARS at the time. More than 10,000 people signed that the Special Anti-Robbery Squad be disbanded at that time. Very few senators, according to reports that you may be aware of, responded. Very few senators gave it backing. And now it has come, you know, to full circle such that this is what we have at this point now. So do you still think people will still be able to believe that the National Assembly will do anything significant if they go off the streets, given the fact that, as you said, the pace of governance, the pace of getting things done is really slow?
Well, now we are already talking to our people in understanding some of these issues. And let me tell you, there is no, as it is now, 1 year down the line of the 9th National Assembly, it's going to be very difficult to find any senator or member of House of Representatives that is not supporting the protesters. It's going to be very difficult. Like I said, how frustrated we have been in some of the motions that we have placed on the floor of the House. Well, if there is any, we will hear them, because no National Assembly member has not had the issue of insecurity, have not had his constituent being killed by extrajudicial killings in terms of police brutality and so on and so forth. So, sincerely, talking to our constituents is something that is difficult. Even us, they have started coming after us that, look, you have not done what we asked you to go and do. So they are even coming after us. Some of us now remove our plate numbers that has to do with reps, because when they see, they say, look, we send you there and you're not doing what you are doing. You are just there collecting sitting allowance. Most of the agitation against the National Assembly members, which are not true. But sincerely, we have done our best. The frustration is everywhere and is all over. And like I said earlier, which I will still insist, that this is time that the executive should be able to show that they are willing and ready to do this. Because if they can start today, the president, just like he ended SARS, and say that, look, all the people that have been killed, who their families, he wants to see their families just like they were doing during the Bring Back Our Girls, seeing the Chibok family. If they want to start interfacing with some of these families, want to start looking at people that have perpetrated those evil in terms of police brutality, that will be done. Not only that, police reforms, which is one of the major areas that the National Assembly have even started in terms of legislation, which has moved as a law. If we can be able to put our heads together and see that police reform is being carried out, it's going to go a long way. Let me tell you, even this agitation that most of our constituents are carrying out today is even for the good of the country, even in terms of police reforms. Today, the salary of the police is bad. If tomorrow, because of police reform, the least police officer is 200,000, the next police recruitment, you will see the children of the elites struggling to get into police because the salary structure is good. So these are issues that the executive really needs to do. In terms of legislation, I can assure you, the National Assembly members, we have done so much, and of which people are even looking as if we are not doing anything. But we will stand with our people, we stand with our constituents in whatsoever they are doing. But then we always advise that it should not go out of hand. They must be peaceful in doing that, because most of what they are doing on the street are demands that they have already brought to us.
Well, you say it mustn't go out of hand. Well, at least we've seen these protesters, the way they've largely coordinated themselves. At the end of the protest, we see them cleaning the streets, the roads where they stay. We've seen how coordinated they are. But we also have seen hoodlums who have gone in there to attack them and try to disrupt it. So can we blame them for that part?
Yeah. It's quite unfortunate. You see, the protest I'm seeing now, it's something that I've never seen the type, because when you see them, most of them, 90% of the protesters, the genuine protesters, are educated people, are people that have finished from school. They don't have jobs. People that have masters, even people that have PhD, they are part of the protest. And that's why you see how well organized they are in terms of even keeping
let me even jump in there and take this a little further. Pardon me to jump in, because listening to some of those examples you've given about the kinds of persons who are in the protest, who are also giving them their support, shouldn't the National Assembly be thinking about taking it one step further? Because, I mean, EndSARS could be the generic nature name of the protest, but there are overarching issues that concern them. I mean, that's why you perhaps see all those groups of people who you mentioned who are giving them support. Essentially, they just look, the system isn't working, hasn't been working, and as presently constituted, they don't see that it will work. So isn't the National Assembly going to do something about having a broader perspective at some of these issues? Because yes, if you end SARS today, you come up with SWAT tomorrow. Essentially, what changes about the system, the economy, the people are hard hit? So what literally changes other than that to guarantee that there won't be another protest tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I quite agree with you, because, again, some of the problem that have to do after now have to do with legislation, because some of them have to have an act. Some of the issues have to do with constitutional amendment, where we need to amend the constitution to have state police, and not only that, to still amend the constitution to see that some of those areas that the protesters are agitating for are constitutional issues, because we want to see a system that works, so that whosoever is the president, whosoever are National Assembly members, what you meet on ground will naturally work. Having a police system that works, having the judiciary that works, having a local government that works, because part of what the National Assembly will really look into is part of the constitutional review. And if you read the statement of the Speaker in terms of constitutional review and issues that the National Assembly want to roll out, we're looking at local government autonomy, even looking at state police, looking at review of a lot of issues that will address this.
Again, Honorable Bagos, sorry to jump in again.
What the executive needs to do is to be able to look at that.
Just one more thing before we go on to Mr. Lee. Remember, we put up a poll some time ago, just before the independence and on the Independence Day as well, asking Nigerians what they wanted. There were several lists, and the key thing that they voted for was, in that amendment, they wanted a provision, a clause for referendum. Over 60%, as you can see right there on the screen. They want that part to be included in all of the amendments that the National Assembly is doing, such that they can have a voice, vote on things that they don't see happening. It happens in several parts of the world. Why isn't the National Assembly including this part or considering this part in all of these amendments that has happened over the years, even today?
Yeah, I can. What we have been doing, collecting views of our constituents, and some of the views that I collected. One of the views that I collected from my constituents, it's about the referendum. Last time I said it, and still emphasizing that I stand for referendum, and most of the people stand for referendum, because if we had that clause in the Constitution, most of these issues that protesters are protesting today would just call for referendum on the floor of the National Assembly, because that could have been the easiest way for the National Assembly to intervene. That if we had had the clause for referendum in the Constitution, all the National Assembly could have just done is to call for referendum, be able to kickstart that. So, but now, most of the issues have to do with the executive. What we need to do in part of legislation is constitutional review. So it is a very welcome idea to have referendum in our constitution, so that that will be like one of the things that the National Assembly can activate in terms of issues like this.
Okay. Well, Mr. Audu, given the pace of work of the National Assembly and the the executive also, what everyone is doing, it's a slow process. Governance is a slow process, where maybe more like a methodic process that takes its time to evolve things, and the youth's insistence on being on the streets until they begin to see evidence that indeed things are changing. What do you think both parties should be doing now?
All right. Before I address that, something Chamberlain said that is very important is the issue of reported attacks on protesters, Lagos, Abuja, and a few other places. That was the main reason we, the young stakeholders of the party, came out to do that press conference, because we wanted our members, our young supporters, and supporters of this government not to see this as an attack on either the president or the party or the government. We needed them to see this, even though the name says EndSARS, as a call for total reform of every sector of our national life that affects everybody. Police brutality does not know partisan affiliation. It does not know region. We understand that it's not very common in the north. But then, our northern brothers and sisters need to stand in unison with our fellow brothers and sisters from every other part of the country that have gone through this. Because an injury or injustice to one is same to all. So we need to speak with one voice, and that was why we wanted our supporters, young members of the party. We know we have a voice in the party. Let's not allow anyone or any group try to push you into disrupting peaceful protests. That was one of the reasons we came out. On the issue of the National Assembly, I think they are not moving fast enough. Not just on this issue, on many issues. The leadership of the National Assembly, both the Senate and the Rep, they need to do more. They've been in the National Assembly for over 20 years. They need to be faster. If they have to work overnight, so be it. Nigerians want to see results, not just on this. Recently, we heard about suspending PIB, the petroleum industry bill. Why suspend it? There's been so much drama about it. The whole deregulation would have been easy and simple for the government if there was a bill. Fast track these things. Nigerians already feel you earn so much, and I feel so too. Then earn it. Do this work. If you have to work there and I do it. And let the people see, the people you represent actually see that you're working for them and not working for yourself. So I don't think, it's not for the executive. I've heard my brother say the executive, it's not just about the SARS. It's not, yes, I am for referendum too. We don't have to be afraid. After all, government is for the people. If the people want restructuring, so give to them what they want. The APC set up a committee headed by Governor El-Rufai at some point. That's an indication that we are committed to actually giving the kind of governance the people want. That's people-centric governance. So we expect National Assembly to put this thing on that we don't have to be afraid of including referendum. There's nothing to hide. The unity of Nigeria shouldn't be forced by any reason. Nigerians love Nigeria. You can see from the protests, it's joyous to see how young people proclaim the Niger spirit. They have flags flying everywhere. It's not about any, we just want a system that works. We don't have a problem with being Nigeria. We love being Nigerian. But we want a Nigeria that works for us and the generation that will come after us. So the National Assembly especially need to sit up. The leadership of National Assembly need to double their effort. They are sleeping on the job. I must say that.
All right, then. So there you go. That is... okay, just briefly because we need to go.
To add from what my brother Ali have said.
Yeah.
To add from what my brother Ali have just said, you see, most of these issues, I will still stand with on the fact that executive have not been moving fast. Because if executive have been taking the resolution of the National Assembly, I can assure you these youths couldn't have been on the streets today. Because they have not shown the real leadership style that we really wanted from resolutions that we have been able to push. And again, on the issue of my northern brothers and the south, we want to beg the youths, especially from the north. They shouldn't take this as an issue of north versus south, because when you see some of the protests ongoing, you see pro-SARS and the ones that are against SARS That's not the issue. It's an issue of a collective issue that have to do with Nigerians entirely. Because it's very important that we need to look and address, especially the leaders, that we should be able to address such lines. Because before tomorrow, some people will start saying that it is Christians versus Muslims, it is PDP versus APC, or it is for Buhari or against Buhari. That is not the issue. The germane issue is what our people are going through. And for the issue of the executive, for instance,
all right,
during the lockdown,
Baggers,
most
we
of
need
us...
to wrap up, really. Apologies on that one. We need to go. Honorable Dachshund Baggers is a member of the House Committee on National Security and Intelligence. We have also had Aliyu Audu, who is the leader of the APC Young Stakeholders Forum. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for coming on. Well, that clip you saw is actually a social media video of a policeman who we understand was pushing a citizen. I mean, he had his gun cocked.
Was trying to punish the guy for one thing or the other.
All right. All right, then we'll be back in just a moment. Don't go away.
The arrival of the governor of Anambra State, Willie Obiano, at the defunct Okuzu SARS facility. His presence is prompted by the protests in Anambra State. He's here to see things for himself. 3 suspects detained by SARS in prison cells are brought to him. Their alleged offences include loitering to trespassing. The governor makes a decision.
3 of you are released. Thank you, sir. So go and carry your things and go. And don't sin anymore. Please, this is the end of the demonstration. Everybody go home. I've addressed all your points. I've got to Okuzo SARS. That's where I'm former SARS. That's where I'm standing now. You know, so everything you requested for, I have done.
It's a more volatile scene in Edo State. Burning tires serve as a makeshift barricade, blocking major exits and entry points to Benin City. The protesters give the reasons behind their actions.
I mean the EndSARS, unemployment, bag of rice, may reduce, may light day, may free treatment, fuel day, good road, everything day.
Nigerian youths are not lazy. We have had enough of this government. We have had enough of insincerity. We have had enough of bad leadership. Enough is enough.
In Akure, the Ondo State capital, the protests take the form of a prayer walk, as the songs of prayer to God herald the protests. It's a mirror of that in Oyo State, this time with trumpets and musical instruments. The youth make their presence felt as they walk the streets of Ibadan. They pause to pray, symbolically touching the ground. It's a protest against the protests in Kano State. The message here is, we support SARS, no to EndSARS, we support SWAT. The governor, Abdullahi Ganduje, welcomes the protesters, and they make their position known. Rainfall in Imo State didn't prevent protesters from gathering in Owerri, the state capital, for a candlelight procession in memory of victims of police brutality. It remains to be seen how long the protests will go on for, as all and sundry are made more aware of their demands.
I want to have a quick conversation with the father of late Jimoh Ishiak, who was killed during the protests in Ogbomoso.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, there's been several casualties. Part of what the protesters are asking for is compensation for those families and ensure that any of those who, in fact, those who are actually responsible for this are brought to justice. They want to see them face trial. They want to see judicial panels of inquiry set up in those states. And then the family is visited. So they want to see all of those things happen to also ensure that this protest doesn't just go in vain.
Well, there are reports that the Oyo State governor has visited, that family, the man in particular, but how far-reaching that will be is what we're about to listen to now. Well, we would like to speak with Mr. Jimoh Raji, who is the father of the late Jimoh Ishiak, who was killed by police gunfire during that protest. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir. We sincerely feel the way you feel. Could you tell us what has happened since this news broke, and what do you think the expectations are?
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I'm hear you.
Yes, sir. So,
Good morning, sir.
how far so far? What has happened since the occurrence? Has there been a visit from anyone? Any promise? Any action taken so far?
We have never done any action about it because we don't expect that this thing will happen to Ishiak Ajima on that Saturday because he has just come from his work. So he wants to go and visit his mom at home. So suddenly they just call us that they have shoot Ishiak along the road. So that's what we know about it.
Has there been any visit from anyone? Can you confirm if indeed there has been a visit, maybe from the governor or from anyone?
Our governor, engineer Sheyimakinde, has visited us to come and pay us his condolence. Minister Honorable Sunday Dare, Minister for Sport and Youth, has come and paid his condolence to us. And then all the State House of Assembly, chairmans, local government chairmans, they are all come. Senator Abdul Fattah Buhari, Omatayo, and so many other politicians, they are all come to pay his condolence to our family.
What have you received any word from the police in the environment about what happened? Has anyone explained anything to you as to what exactly happened?
We have heard so many things from them because they talk say they are not the one that shoot Ishiak Ajima, and everybody that say him that they are the one that shoot Ishiak Ajima.
So there is no further explanation other than that denial? No one has explained anything other than denying the fact that it was the police?
No one. They are denied that they are not killed Ishiak Ajima.
So, did they tell you who shot him? Have they told you who shot him? If they say they are not the one.
That's what I heard from them. Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
You hear me?
Yes.
What is it?
So at the moment, has the family received any compensation for the loss of your son?
There is so many compensation because all over Nigeria, everybody just compensates. Even if anybody, they compensate us, they compensate, but not from police, but from Governor Sheyimakinde, they compensate us, and so many other people in Nigeria, all over the world, in abroad. Even there's one man, Oluwatobi, pay us 140,000 naira yesterday from Canada. So there are so many people compensate us about Ishiak Ajima's death.
Well, you know what everyone has been talking about, the EndSARS protests and all of those things. What do you think the youths in the area, what do you think they think about that, and how do you think they are reacting to the death of your son as a result of this?
In our area?
Yes.
Since last week Sunday, they have stopped everything. But as I hear yesterday night that they will start the protest today. The students will start the process today in Ogbomoso. Even maybe they are gathered themselves now. So they will start the process today again. But since last week Sunday, they have already stopped when the police killed another 3 persons on Sunday. So that's why they stopped the protest. But they will start it today again. So the students will start the protest again today.
Did you say they killed another 3 people?
Yes, they still killed another people on Sunday. After the Isiaka on Friday, they still killed another 3 people on Sunday.
Who killed them? Is it the police or some other people?
The police. It's the police.
Can you confirm, how do you know that it is the police? Because they are also watching right now. How can you confirm that it is the police?
I confirmed because when the all area boys doing the protest against what they did about Isiaka Jima. So even I can tell you that by the time Honorable Sunday Dare come and pay his condolence to our family, he heard their shooting gun, the police shooting gun, he heard everything. Honorable Sunday Dare, Minister for Youth and Sport, he heard everything. He's with us by that time. He heard the police shooting gun.
All right, so...
well, we have to thank you very much for talking to us this morning.
As father of late Isiaka.
Yes,
Jimo.
father of late Isiaka Jimo, Jimo Raji in Ogbomoso.
It was shocking to say that the additional killings have happened.
And that a minister
Sunday.
heard the gunshots and possibly even witnessed it. That's what he's just said. I don't know. The issues are just right there on our faces.
Oh dear, and this is part of what they've been talking about, that these things are still going on. But remember, in Abuja as well, the protesters did gather. Let's get some update now as to what is happening to the camps. We do have Lucky right there in Abuja. Hello, Lucky. What's happening? What parts of Abuja are you at the moment? All right, if that is not...
Good morning.
Can we see Lucky at this
We are right in front of Mogadishu Barracks, popularly known as Abacha Barracks, along Maraba Yanya Way. Soldiers have taken over the place. Members of the EndSARS movement, the protesters, are nowhere in sight. There is free flow of traffic at the moment. The soldiers are conducting a stop and search. They have narrowed the way to ensure that there is free movement of goods and persons. We understand that last night the EndSARS protesters who had a vigil in front of the headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria were attacked. We got there this morning. We saw policemen have taken over the place, and the street cleaners are already there cleaning up the whole place. They have cleared every debris, and there is no sign of the burnt vehicles. I spoke with some of the protesters this morning, and they said hoodlums attacked them while they camped in front of the headquarters of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Right now, from this point, we'll be moving to the popular AYA, where a lot of civil servants working in the Federal Capital Territory reside. The EndSARS protesters had sent flyers around town that they are going to block the AYA, which is a major entry point into the FCT. The AYA links Nasarawa Plateau into the Federal Capital Territory. From this point, we'll be going to that AYA junction to see if the EndSARS protesters are anywhere in sight. But at the moment, the situation is calm here. The EndSARS protesters are nowhere in sight. Soldiers are busy checking passengers, checking vehicles, and there is free flow of movements. We also understand that some of the EndSARS protesters will be going to the Unity Fountain later in the day, and others, the pro-SARS protesters, are also going to protest in front of the force headquarters from information I gathered. We'll be keeping you posted on the situation, whether the pro-SARS protesters or the EndSARS protesters, whichever group will be coming out today. But right now, I can tell you that when we went around town before setting up here, policemen are all over the city, right from the airport road. They've taken strategic position to ensure that people do not gather unnecessarily. At the moment, we'll be keeping you posted on whatever the situation is.
All right, then. Thank you very much indeed, Lucky. So it does appear as though Abuja, it may be interesting today moving forward. Well, he says the army, they are already on the streets conducting stop and search. That news wasn't there on Friday. So following their release, even though they said they were not going to be targeting protesters, but they're doing stop and search, as he says. And the police are all over the location to ensure people don't gather.
And mark what he said, that so as to ensure that people do not gather unnecessarily.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
How did you tell me what is necessary, what is unnecessary?
Exactly. So, that gathering is essentially saying once you are up to 5, they're going to probably come and ask you questions. What are you doing here and all of that.
Which law will they rely on to do that? Because if it's a protest, I mean, they even said
it's legitimate.
They have right to peaceful protest and peaceful gatherings.
And so far, it has been peaceful as far as the protesters are concerned, whether they are pro or anti. So we have our job cut out for us.
We got. Remember when the protest happened, there were different groups who were protesting. But this particular time, there's this group of young people who their protest was kind of different. We saw images of groups praying, walking, and doing several other things, and so that is a different one from what had happened previously. So we decided to go in and find out, okay, what is this about? How is
very
this
interesting.
intended?
Yeah, very interesting, because, I mean, pockets of places all over. In fact, most of last week, we had prayer walks in various cities in Nigeria and even abroad in different parts of the world as well, having protests and praying. I've never seen this kind of thing.
Okay, so joining us to shed light on some of this, we've got Adeze Daniel Obena. She happens to be of the Lekki Prayer and Declaration Group. And then we also have Dikpo Ayo Adelusi of the Kingdom Community. Well, they participated in some of those. Well, Adeze, let's start with you. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Could you tell us?
Hi, good morning. I'm glad to be here.
All right, talk to us. What was that about? What informed that prayer walk that occurred? Your area is in Lekki. That's where you held yours, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, to be honest, we young Christians had actually been praying for this country for the longest time. And at the point last week when one of us, by the name Limo Blaze, decided that it was time for us to take it to the streets and do something different, what we have actually been practicing in our inside, to bring it outside and declare what we believe our faith should be in times like this. And so we decided to have prayer walks organized at different communities wherein we reside. So we had the first one at Ikeja, just about the Lagos State Government office. And then, of course, the second one was at Lekki Ikoyi Environment. Yeah. And
Dikpo. Okay, go on. Very quickly.
To be honest, it was the Holy Spirit inspired. Yeah. It was just a call to the obedience of the Holy Spirit.
It's interesting that Adeze would put it that way, Dikpo. Given that, I mean, I've been in the media for long enough to know that when protests happen, it's just protests. This is the first time we're having a protest with prayers, How do you see this also playing out, I mean, what do you think, well, beside the Holy Spirit element that Adeze talked about, what informed it for you?
I think it's important to understand that there's a natural and spiritual aspect to everything that we see going on. If you're a person of faith, you understand that. So just by that mere fact, we understand that with the situation in Nigeria, what's going on in the country at the moment, it's beyond just tackling things in the natural space. So we have everybody doing what they know how to do, and that's very commendable. We have people protesting, we have people funding, we have people doing all sorts of things, whatever it is that you can do, you're trying to do. And in like mind, people who are spiritually inclined are also tackling things from a spiritual perspective. Just think about it in a natural sense. Whenever you want to embark in any kind of mission, you would naturally pray if you're a person of faith. In the same way, we're trying to do something like this, reform the nation, because it goes beyond ending SARS, right? So you're trying to reform the nation. Of course, you would commit that to God. And we have received so much word time and time and again. For many years, we've received prophetic words concerning the country, concerning the kind of Nigeria that God has desired for us. And I think that it's not coincidence that all of a sudden the youth, or the majority of the youth in a country, would wake up and stand up and be persistent in this way and just continue to look for change and transformation in the country. So we are just doing our part as well as people of faith. That's pretty much what it is.
All right, well, Adese, I think what I meant to say was that he doesn't usually see people get to the streets, prayer walk, during a protest.
Yeah.
So normally, of course, people will pray in their homes and things like that. So I hope that everything works out well. But how did people respond or receive this? What was the reaction you got while you went about it?
To be very honest, it was amazing. Online, offline. It seemed as though the Nigerian youths were eagerly waiting for a platform, eagerly waiting for someone to go, which is the reason why obedience is very, very important and key. It was as though people were waiting. There was a birthing inside people that they wanted to bring out. And on Saturday, it was just beautiful having to see people of different denominations coming together for just one purpose, for the love of this country, to bring forth every prophecy, every decree, everything that we have always wanted this country to be, to speak it forth in this season. It was just beautiful. And the feedbacks, it's been amazing. The support, it was honestly amazing. It was honestly amazing.
Okay, I'll ask you again also, Dipo. So the prayers are going on, a lot of worship, a lot of music, just to give God thanks and all. And Adese spoke to the fact that there are words that have been given ahead and so many things that people want. Specifically, for those who may also want to join the protests by praying, what should they be praying for beyond the obvious? I mean, we talked about EndSARS and all of those things. What is it in specifics that you would say should be on our prayer list as Nigerians for this nation within the shortest possible time?
That's a great question. For me, I always tackle things straight from the heart of God. So it's not just about what I want, but I'm always seeking what God wants. So my first point would be to take some time and just ask God for what he wants for Nigeria, because ultimately his plans are way better than our plans. That's what the Bible says, right? So the first step would be to ask God for what he wants. And based on what I hear or what I sense, I start to pray in that line. But if you feel like you don't necessarily have very good connection, or maybe you feel like you don't hear as well as you might want to, I think it's very simple. What are the kinds of things that trouble you about Nigeria? That's also a great place to start. So do you have 24 hours of power? Do you have good roads? Do you have protection? If you're a person who does business, how would you like to be supported in your business by your government? How would you like to be supported as a day-to-day person who has a 9-to-5, So those are some areas that you can start from. What sort of change would you like to see? And just put them into prayer. Because prayer is not supposed to be this very, overly spiritual, augmented thing. It's really just conversation like you would with any friend. So that's a great place to start. If you know that you haven't sort of developed your sense of hearing from God, it's great to just start from what kind of things you'd like to see change in Nigeria. There's so many problems. Which ones affect you? Start from there. You can be selfish about it. You can start from there. Or what things affect, the neighborhood, and put those into prayer.
All right, then. So, okay, we'll go to break, but we'll come back and continue this conversation in just a moment. Stay with us. right, welcome back. Well, Adeze, let's get to you on this one. Well, yes, you're carrying out your own, getting your voice heard in your own way, but what next after this? I mean, people will always say, but God is not going to come from heaven to effect some of the changes that people want here. So what next for you? All the group.
Keep doing what we've always been doing in our closet. The fire is burning. The youth, we can see, is crystal clear. It's international now. People are organizing prayer walks in their communities, in their various locations across the country. I also protest peacefully. Yeah, so when I'm not praying, I'm out there lending my voice. Trying as much as possible to also volunteer as well. So it's balanced. I'm praying, I'm participating, and I'm also working as well. And back to it, I'm just going to go back to do what I've always been doing, praying and interceding for the country. Yeah.
All right. So, Dipo, there's the place of prayer, and then there is the place of, getting into the trenches, as we say. How would you like that to be approached going forward? On the one hand is the fact that there are leaders and on various strata of government, but then the young people are calling for change, and some of them will perhaps need to get in there to make some changes. What's your thought on that?
I think it's important that everybody play the role that they know how to. Like I said earlier, you'll find that on social media, different people are plugging in different ways. So, you have someone like Fowles who is lending his voice and his legal expertise to the conversation. You have people like FK Abuja, who's also doing all she can to rally around logistics and funding. So it's a matter of everybody doing what they know how to do. Amongst us, we have people who specialize in policies and strategy. Amongst us, we have people who can deal with funding. Amongst us, we have people who are already working in the circles of government who can start to lend their voices. So I think it's a matter of everybody channeling whatever it is that they know how to do best. You have to sit down and ask yourself, what can I do? What is my area of interest? What am I good at? And how can I bring that forward? Because, what we do as the church isn't just to pray anymore. There's something that we now know to be the new wineskin church. And what we do with the new wineskin church means that, we transcend just praying and sitting down and waiting for, like you said, God to come down from heaven. No, we are gods on earth. And so we ask for blueprints and we ask for strategy, and we also ask for support for those who are also doing what they're doing, that God will, give them ideas and strategies so that they can start to implement. So, gone are the days when Christians just stayed in the four walls of a church. Now we also transcend into government, into society, and we are Christians being, in the different areas that we find ourselves in, different spheres of influence where we are. So yeah, that'd be my recommendation.
In other words, this means they need to take it a step further, get into positions, get more interested in what affects and happens around you. That's what you're calling, asking for, isn't it?
Absolutely. Christians need to get out there. You're not just there without talents, without abilities. You have education, you have enlightenment, you have the Spirit of God who is the source of ideas and strategies. So engage him and ask for strategies and ideas. The best ideas come from God as far as I'm concerned. So ask him and get out there, use the talents and abilities that you have. There's a reason why you've been opportune to have education and to be exposed to certain things. So use that and, continue praying about it for direction and guidance, and it will all come together.
Adeze, well, maybe both of you can respond to this as we wind down. So many still don't know when this is going to end. Do you have any idea when it's going to wind down, or when next is this prayer walk meeting going to happen?
Like I said, we've been praying before now, and this was just an opportunity to press in a little bit more and just have every other person pressing with us. After now, there are still prayer walks being organized by different people, different communities every day, locally and internationally. Like I also said, it was divinely instructed by the Holy Spirit. Will there be prayer walks? Absolutely. So just watch out for prayer walks around you. Are we going to be organizing another one? I think so. Yeah, so just look up.
All right, then. We'll have to thank both of you for talking to us today. Adese Obina and Dikbo Ayo Adeosi. Thank you for your time and stay safe.
Thank you so much for having us.
All right. Well, let's move on now. We've got another young man as well.
Well, perhaps one of those people who, as Deepo said, have to get the job done. And Adebayo Karis joins us as one of those protesters, EndSARS protesters. Thanks for joining us this morning. Well, this is where we are. You know, almost 2 weeks so far. For you, how far so far? Oh, well, as you can see, Ovi Manuel Hupono has just joined us. Thank you for joining us, and Ovi is at the venue. Well, before I take it with Adebayo, Ovi, can you tell us what exactly is happening? Where are you and what is happening right now? Hello, Ovi, can you hear me? Ovi Manuel? All right, well, when Ovi is ready, we'll be able to take him in. So, Adebayo, how far so far as you're concerned?
Thank you so very much. My name is actually Adedayo, not Adebayo.
Adedayo, okay. Apologies for that. Go ahead, please.
Yes. No, it's fine. Yeah, the movement has been fantastic so far. And then it's just started with a little bit of a drop of people coming together and having to stand up for people that can actually speak for themselves. And then that's what has led to what we currently have here now. And then, as the other guy said before, everybody has a part and a role to play in all this thing that is happening. And then it's not stopping yet, and then it's going to continue for a while. And then while protesting is still going on, there are also a lot of other people that are in the background coming up with strategies and ideas and structures on how to actually be able to move the nation forward. So somebody like myself now, I've been working for a while, just putting trying to put together resources so for when that time is right, for me to actually be able to execute, for me to actually be able to come into play as well, or to come to the table to be able to offer solutions in moving forward and also driving this nation forward. Because nations are not built by government; they are built by the citizen of the nation. America, as an example, was not built by the government; it was built by the Americans. So that's exactly what we need in Nigeria. Nigeria is going to be built by Nigerians, not the government. Government is just a system that was put in place just to put people in check. So the people are the people that owns the nation. So Nigerians are the one that owns Nigeria. Nigerians belong to every single Nigerian. So that's why we are coming up together now, saying that how do we now move forward?
Adebayo, since government is a system that runs things, you would know that government has already responded in a way to some of the things. SARS has been ended, SARS has been suspended, some action is going on, judicial panels being set up in various states, some compensation going out, some structures being put in place by this government, as you say, runs things. So given that, should the protest still continue?
Yeah, that's so true. But this government have been found many times to have lied. So they said that they are disbanded. They've disbanded the EndSARS, the SARS. So this is something that they've done quite a lot of times before in 2015, 19, and you could see the screenshots of all these statements that they've made before. So that's the issue, where it's a love story that has a distrust. So the people in Nigeria, we don't trust the government. So you've said this thing many times before. So we are going to wait, we're going to be on the street until we now see these structures that you are putting in place and we start seeing the effect of them. So that's when we can say, okay, yeah, we believe you now, we trust you, let us move forward. So the people as well are ready to actually get out of the streets, to actually go back into their various places and continue with their normal lives. But the question is that this government cannot be trusted. So we've trusted them before. We've given them the right hand to say, yeah, let's work together. So until we start seeing those police officers that brutalize people, we start seeing them being persecuted. And then we also start seeing them compensating the people that are affected by this brutality. So that's when we now take them serious and say, okay, yes, we believe that now you are ready. So let's move forward.
What do you say to those who think, well, yes, they support the protest, but they say you're blocking the roads?
Well, that's the point. which road are they talking about that is being blocked? They are supposed to join the protest itself, because we've been to the government places where we could speak to them, but they are not ready to listen to us. So the only way is to be able to out them where it ought most. So the roads, let's block the road, let's shut down the economy. So when the government themselves can actually be able to move from here to B, then they can understand what we are talking about. And the other people that are saying that, you know what, this doesn't concern me, I'm going to sit in my house. So then that's why the road has been blocked. So we are letting them know that this is Nigeria. We are fighting for those ones that their voices could not be heard. And that's what my favorite book says, that if you are a person that you will not help the poor, the time is going to come, you're going to cry and nobody's going to hear you. So that means that your voice will not be heard. So that's the point what we are saying now. So rather than you sitting down in your house or saying that just going by with your daily businesses, so we are telling that you are part of this and we are dragging you into it, whether you like it or not. You are going to feel the pain. We are going to cause the pain across the whole country. Everyone, whatsoever you do, you have to feel the pain. You have to understand what it takes to go through brutality from this bad policemen.
All right. Well, let's try Ovi Emmanuel Kukonu one more time. Can you hear me, Ovi Emmanuel?
Good morning.
Yes, good morning. Where are you and what's happening where you are right now?
Now I'm at Agbara, Express Road, and right now there is a shutdown, and everybody is on their feet, walking from one point to the other because the protesters are taking over the streets. Everybody carrying placards of EndSARS, everybody carrying placards of Stop Police Brutality and extortion on Lagos Badagry Express Road. And there are others who have very big banners of Fix Lagos Badagry Express Road. You actually know that road is a nightmare and a national embarrassment to Nigeria. This is what is going on right now. Behind me, you see guys, men, women, even market women have come to join the protesters to make sure that their voices are heard. And that is why everybody along the Lagos Badagry Express Road is feeling the heat of the protest right now.
Well, when you say that, the roads along Lagos Badagry has been blocked, it's an international route, right? I mean, doesn't that will affect, a lot of things, even people who are coming from outside Nigeria, don't you think so?
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that even before this morning, before the protest started, there was nothing meaningful to call a road along this place. So people have actually assumed that there is no road called Lagos Badagry Expressway any longer. So even the market women, the moment they go to the market and they saw the protesters.
Oh, dear. All right, well, we'll get back to him soon. Okay, we'll get that connection back. But Adedayo, let me ask you, there have been lots of people who supported the protest. I think the fathers are going to have their protest support soon. Who knows if mothers will equally join. Several professionals, even within the ruling party, did throw their support behind the young people who are protesting, saying, yes, they do understand. We've seen a lot of camaraderie among young people at the protest venues and the friendship. But when you say you want to hurt them by letting them feel the pain, aren't you going to lose so many who are supporting you if they hear you talking about wanting to hurt them? Because they will tell you, but wait a minute, we didn't cause the problem. Why do you want to hurt us?
Yeah, that's right. So when we say hurt, it's not about actually causing damages to them. It's about letting them understand the pain that the other people are actually feeling. Because you see, the reason why they are taking this protest serious now is because more people are joining in. At the beginning, there were only a few people. It was led by the likes of the Reno Sabi. So if those young, brave people haven't stood up, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are now. So those people that are saying that they are being hurt by the road being shut down or the road being blocked now. So they could have started this whole thing earlier. So the question is that for the fact that they are not joining the movement, so what else is important to them? Are they happy the way their lives have been, they are living their lives? So like people are saying right now that the road where it was being blocked now, it was as though the road never existed because the road was never good. So that's why the market women are joining in, because they understood what is happening. So that's why we want them to understand. They are part of this. This is not just about the youth movement. It's just the fact that the youth are the one that woke up and say, you know, enough is enough. We want better life. We want things to change. So every other person, every other people in Nigeria now needs to get up and say, okay, we are with you. We are joining you. It's not about hurting you, but we are in this together. This Nigeria has never worked. We want everybody now to come out to say we want this Nigeria to work. It's as though we have a bone in our hands. So this bone is there, we want meat, but we have to let go of the bone before the meat can actually come into the vacuum that has been created on the pan. So unless we let go of the bone, the meat will have no place to be able to sit on. So that's why those people that are going through the heat or going to be hot, I understand, and I'm so sorry for them, sincerely sorry. But this is what we have to do. We have to go through this pain. Pain comes before the bet. So then that's when the bet comes, the blessings come. Then we all rejoice together. This is for the betterment of Nigeria. And I want everybody to kindly join us, to kindly be patient with this. This is something that is going to be good for every single one of us. We have to end bad governance in this Nigeria. We've been doing this for a whole lot. And then one of the questions I asked my dad was that, what were you doing?
All right.
Everyone in Nigeria.
Adebayo, just one moment, Adebayo. Let's have the opinion of Ovi Manuel just before we wrap up this segment. So, Ovi, is there a program for today's protests where you are?
Yes, there are programs. The professional bodies along the Lagos Express Road, all the professional bodies said they are coming in the afternoon. The Association of Lawyers, Association of Journalists, everybody is joining the protest. And right now, as you can see, it's actually building up. And everyone is saying that this is the best time to sacrifice something for us to have the Nigeria of our dreams. So people are not actually looking at it here from the angle of somebody's blocking the road and I'm going somewhere. Everybody needs, because no one has ever enjoyed this country. Nobody has ever enjoyed what Nigeria has offered because of bad leadership. And people believe that right now, this is just the best time. The programs here is that there are a lot of committees, there are a lot of market women, there are a lot of interest groups trying to have their voices heard and they are taking their turn to address the crowd. The crowd here is something else. The crowd here is something else, seriously. And we are happy that Channels Television is giving us the opportunity for the people of Badagry to be heard across the globe. And right now, we really appreciate this. We really appreciate it. The fact is, we want the Lagos-Badagry Expressway to be fixed. We want SARS to be ended. We want everything to be scrapped. SARS, SWAT, anything, because Nigerians are no longer free as human beings in their own country. And that is not what we represent.
Well, I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation. And, of course, Channels Television will keep you posted minute by minute in different parts of the world as far as we have information about the EndSARS protests here in Nigeria. Adebayo Karis, as well as Ovemano Huponu, joined us this morning. Thank you so much for your time and thoughts.
All right, so it's time to take a look at some feedback coming through from, well, actually, there's been torrents of them coming through, but, you know, we can only take as much. I mean, someone said the other day, you always say you have so many emails, so take them, let's see.
Well, there's actually quite a lot. Okay, this first one is
well,
from...
it says Henry.
Yeah.
And it says, look, good morning, guys. The IGP needs to look into the way policing is being handled in this country. The police extortions is now on a daily basis. What it says is now a daily business. We employ the federal government to also look into this matter and ensure that no police personnel extorts from its citizens and create a toll-free number for complaint. I want to categorically report an issue where citizens are maltreated, with issues being reported in a situation without proper findings, and then they are being told to pay heavily. He's asking if bail is free. He says, any citizen found wanting in any crime, I suggest his fine should be paid in a federation account than to be paid at hand to a police officer, because this, he says, breeds corruption.
Well, certainly something to give a thought to. Bulamatu says, wait a minute, aren't we equal stakeholders in this country? Your right to protest shouldn't deny my right to free movement. Well, that's one reaction right there.
And then you got Okoha, who says, the men of SARS are still parading themselves at Oyigbo, local government area, and the government is telling us they've been disbanded. I think Koha needs to tell us which Oyigbo local government area, which state is this now, because there are different Oyigbo local government areas. There's one in River State, there's several other ones. So,
well, let me go back to some of the ones that I began with in the morning. Patrick Inobeme began by talking about government's credibility, that it's now on trial in Nigeria, given the various promises such as the restructuring of the federation made by the government and which they have flagrantly failed to fulfill. The youths are finding it difficult to believe that the government is serious in its promise to reform the police. Still a number of others right there. This one also by Nduka Ozuribo says the IGP can set up an intelligence team in every state made up of credible police officers, which I believe there still are, who would disguise on the roads, even in public transport, to fish out those bad officers collecting money and unleashing brutality on citizens. Then very decisive disciplinary measures applied. I bet you others would sit up.
Okay, additional sends one as well. Is that the one you have there? No, right. I think this is from Emeka, who says, well, the position of some northern governors suggests that the SARS team in the north is different from the SARS team in the south. They are also suggesting that the police is treating youths in the north differently from the way youths in the south are being treated by SARS team. It is very surprising to hear the suggestions from our northern elites.
Well, this one by additional, you wanted to take the other time. Good morning, gentlemen. Please note that protests should be codenamed End Police Corruption and Brutality. An average policeman sees a successful Nigerian as an enemy, then goes after him to extort and or hound him into prison. It's a sad development. Corruption in the police starts at the so-called police training schools and colleges. Recruits buy all they use in the training schools. We need to wake up and correct the ills in our society.
Well, yes, indeed, but there are some other items which did raise some concern. This morning, remember we spoke to the father of late Isiaka Juma, who says there are still about 3 people were shot
yes.
on Sunday. And he says the Minister of Youth and Sports?
Yes, Minister of Youth and Sports, that he witnessed or maybe heard gunshots himself as well. I think these issues clearly, as we have heard over the past 1 week dealing with this issue, they run much deeper than just, mere words and the rhetoric or just, doing something. There needs to be a lot of deep work being done. Well, Olu Phillips yesterday, beg your pardon, referenced our report of 2015 about the training system of the police, the habitation of the police. That's where it begins. And so what has been done about that one so far, that's something that
while they say the SWAT team is beginning training today, but if there are reports in different parts saying some of the SARS that has been disbanded are still operating, or is it that the policemen now are the ones responsible for some of those things going on? It raises a lot of questions, because when they talk about SARS, it's not just about SARS.
No more.
They're talking about police reforms as well.
It's police.
Holistic, the attitude. The whole uniform men.
Yeah, the whole thing began way back. Remember, just as we were asking Honorable Bagos, the whole thing began way back in time, deep into the 80s, that people have been talking about police brutality. What decisively has been done to make sure that doesn't continue?
As we wind down, it's that, look, yes, it might not have been topmost in all of these demands, but one thing that could equally help in the way the relationship between the police or security agencies and the citizenry goes, beyond all of those police community relations desks that they set up in some police stations, you could see it's not achieving much. I stand corrected. They have to, perhaps even if it's the IG, there has to be that pronouncement that, listen, every citizen has a right to record any activity between the policeman and the citizen going out there without harassment. Now, that is one way you could bring transparency to the structure, to the system, such that they can see. If they know that the searchlight is on them, they will think twice.
Make it better. make it official. Let the police wear body cams. It's a global minimum. Come on.
Baby steps first.
Yes, agreed, baby steps, but let the police themselves even tell us, okay, this is the plan. Let policemen begin to wear body cams. That's where there is it's not going to be, okay, it's a doctored video or anything. It's official video. It's police video.
Well, yes, while they work on that,
Yeah.
because they will tell you, look, it will take time to procure those materials and do. Citizens can fill in that gap in the meantime. Because once you see that, I mean, just try recording. You could get brutalized. Even as journalists who are backed by law to do these things.
And evidence of what you're talking about is the gory, forgive us for those who may think it's something, but it's something that is on social media of a policeman hitting a Nigerian, of a vehicle hitting a Nigerian who was being pursued by a policeman. And after that, you cock a gun at the man who has already been shot on the ground, who has already been hit by a vehicle.
All right.
That really is something.
So there you go. That is the program today. We do thank you all for watching. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow. But there you go. That's the Jumat service that held as well. So different groups coming together and doing what they can, participating in whichever way they can. So just keep it peaceful as much as you can while you can. Well, that is it today. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain Oso.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day and please keep safe.